A lot of professors will allow you to use web pages in an assignment. The key is for you to learn how to evaluate the web page, to think critically about the content on it. Anybody can publish anything on the web, whether it's true or not. So you, as the consumer, need to be ready to critically look at it. Here are a couple things to look for. First, focus on the author. Who wrote this web page? Who created it? Who's responsible for it? Look for contact information, names, biographical information that includes degrees, background, and expertise. Look at the domain name. .com, .org, .edu, and .gov all are different domains that go with different types of websites. A .com, anybody can pay for, anybody can use. A .org can be purchased by anybody, but is predominantly used by nonprofits. .edus tend to be universities and colleges, while .gov tends to be the federal government and state governments. Keep in mind, federal government web pages, even if you disagree with administrations, as well as state web pages, tend to provide fantastic statistical data gathered through all these agencies. So don't hesitate to use it just because you don't agree with the perspective of an administration. Knowing who your author is often is the only step people can take. If you can't identify who your author is or who's responsible for a page, very often it's not worth using. If you do move beyond your author, you want to next look for a bias. A bias is presenting one perspective of an issue over the others. Who is biased? Everybody is biased. We all have biases. The point of research and evaluation of sources is to step back from our personal beliefs and look at what is evident. So how does bias influence web pages? Well, because anybody can put anything on the web without it being true, it means every bias is presented on the internet. Some are incredibly obvious, while others are much more subtle. So if you think about an organization like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, they have a clear bias to present information that supports their view that drinking while driving is bad. It doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. What I'm telling you and explaining is that there is a perspective they're trying to present you. What does that mean about the information on the web page that they create? Well, they're going to focus on research that supports their point of view. It doesn't mean don't use it. It means be ready, be prepared, and be aware that you need to make sure you get the other side of the argument if there is one. One way to identify where they got their information from is to look for those citations. Just like we make you do on your papers, you want to look for those sources that they use to give you information on their web page. That way you can go to those sources to confirm their perspective and what they're sharing on the web page. Finally, if you decide that both the author is a credible author and their bias and objectivity are sound and you can work with it, you want to look at accuracy and currency. Look for clear misinformation. I know it's hard to tell what you don't know, but you can identify some clear bits of misinformation on a web page. If you can, you know not to move forward with it. If not, go to those sources. Skip the web page altogether and go to the sources for their information. With currency, you'll want to look for when the page was last updated. Very often at the very bottom of a page, you'll see information about when the page was created and when the page was last updated. Don't get misled by copyright dates. That doesn't have anything to do with the updates. That only has to do with the author claiming ownership. If you see a lot of outdated or broken links, you know the page hasn't been up to date. There's nobody looking at it to update the information on it. This is critical, especially with currency issues. You want to make sure if the topic you're writing about requires some level of currency, that you have web pages that have the accuracy and currency of what's currently going on for your issue.